role you have post-presidency, so do you plan to speak out after you leave Washington, or are you going to follow kind of more of the Bush model where you're kind of out of sight, out of mind?
I'm not going to be out of sight or out of mind.
Joe Biden, he's not going to vanish. He's not going to disappear. He's not going to be out of sight and out of mind. Well, he's been out of his mind for years, but I'm hoping he'll be out of sight. And now, Led Zeppelin. Now, John, let me tell you, the whole world is rising up to respond to you. And, as you might imagine, well, opinions vary. I've got to say. And Jane is on phones today. She's nodding her head. Yes, getting calls from people, and because, yeah, quite a response for John and his dilemma. It's a remarkable country we're living in, and again, you know, the conservative is perfectly happy to political differences don't make it's not a big thing. As you have different political views, that doesn't mean that I don't love you. But you know, with lefties, the Democrat Party teaches hate and hate Trump supporters, hate Trump inauguration, and that is the Democrat Party today. I grew up in a Democrat Party household, and this was not the Democrat Party. When I was a kid, when I was a child, this was not the Democrat Party. But today, the Democrat Party is not. They're not good neighbors. They're not good friends. The politics gotten way too crazy. And was talking to someone else at the radio station today who said an old friend on Facebook unfriended her when the liberal friend, found out she worked at WMAL. And so I can't have anybody that I know on Facebook be aware of the fact that I know someone that works at WMAL. So unfriended the WMAL employee, conservative talk radio station in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., unfriended by a liberal, long time, known for, almost 20 years or something, and unfriended because she works in the wrong place. Now, that is dementia. That is craziness. That is political fanaticism and extremism. And who are the political fanatics and extremists in this story? Just remarkable. All right, I will take one call to follow up on the topic. Let's go to Pam calling from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Pamela, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Boy, I couldn't resist calling. I think John is he knows what he needs to do. He is saying the quiet part out loud, unfortunately, and if nothing but the last 4 years has shown the importance of being with someone who understands what's going on, it's now. And since he has an 18-year-old son, I'm sure he would probably counsel his son a little bit differently than maybe what he's doing right now. And I feel for him, but I do think that, you know, he really does know that he can't move forward, even though it's been a real 9 years together. So I'm sure that he has learned a lot over the last 9 years in terms of what the left really is trying to do to our country. And I feel badly for him, and but I think he'll be happier. In fact, actually, when he takes some time to, you know, regroup and everything like that, he could probably use one of your advertisers and go to It's Just Lunch and meet somebody.
That is great. That is great. You're right. You're hilarious. That's very funny. Yeah, I mean, he sounds like a squared-away guy, doesn't he? Sounds like an intelligent, well-spoken, a wise person, and he just doesn't understand why this would be an issue. But the left, and again, nobody's more undemocratic than the modern-day American Democrat, self-identified Democrat. But it's kind of sad, isn't it, that in the United States of America today, that this can be such an issue. I know growing up, we were living in Pelham, New York, and then we moved to Chicago, and we had neighbors in Pelham, New York, and we had neighbors in Chicago, and I know that the parents, and it was kind of a running joke, he's a big Republican and she's a big Democrat, and they're a married couple, and it was good for a chuckle, and then everybody poured a glass of brown liquor with some ice in it and lit a cigarette, and everything was fine, right?
Yep. I mean, the one thing that's different about his situation is he is not married. If he were married, I'd say stick it out. But he's not married. So I think this is his way out of this. And I think if you look down the line where the left wants to take us, they want to take us to euthanasia and all sorts of, shooting up more vaccines and who knows what else. I think it's not going to be a pretty picture. I mean, you think about trying to talk about what's really on your mind with somebody in a situation like that. And if you really can't have a good discussion about what's going on, that's what drives love. You understand and value what other people value. I mean, I'm not saying you can't have differences, but something like this, the Bible talks about if two walk together, they need to be agreed. And not saying that he's, Bible-toting person or anything like that. But at the same time, I think it speaks to the fact that it's real important to have some major things in agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, very very interesting. I've got to tell you, and I should give John a heads up also. Because this is a public forum, I have already. I didn't set out to collect it, but I've been people out there listening know John and have provided me with all kind of. I have like a full dossier and resume on John already, and he's a great guy and a great American, and I'm hearing from people that know John, and it's all very positive. It's all 100% positive about John. So fascinating. I look forward to Tuesday, and I know that John will go to the inaugural ball, and his 18-year-old son will go to the inaugural ball, and that they'll have a great time, and it will be wonderful. And I hope that the girlfriend just shrugs and says, okay, what do you want for dinner? And can I, make you a cocktail of brown liquor on ice in a in a highball glass? Pam, thank you for your wonderful call. And, everybody, and listen, people from our side, listen to Pam, listen to you, Pam. You care about the people and you're concerned and want the best and most reasonable outcome, right?
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Well, I hope it goes well, and I hope you do I'm sure your call screener will be super busy taking calls. Maybe you could let us know what the percentage is that thinks this might be the deciding factor.
Yeah, just amazing stuff, I've got to tell you. Yeah, and I don't know. I want to hear. Let me just say, I want to hear from John after the inauguration's over, and I don't want to be buying him beers yet, but isn't that amazing? An epic, historic call, and now I'm waiting on bated breath until Tuesday, after all of the inaugural balls, and I want to hear, and hopefully it just went very well, and as Best Girl said, okay, all right, I'll watch The Real Housewives and everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. That's the appropriate answer, right? But the propaganda, this is about the propaganda the left has put out, that the information dominance. Thank you, Pamela. Wonderful, wonderful call. And you can just hear the niceness in her voice, and isn't that great? Because our side, we're the good guys. We're not the crazy people. Boy, the left has so demonized Donald Trump that one person shot him through the ear a while back and had to be shot and killed by a U.S. Secret Service counter sniper. And another Democrat was arrested along the fence line of President Trump's golf course in Florida and West Palm Beach, Florida, with a rifle, who was planning on assassinating him. the Democrats demonized, and Joe Biden was doing it last night on MSNBC, demonized the Supreme Court. And a Democrat with a gun and multiple magazines of ammunition and burglary tools and kidnapping tools showed up at the home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh with his family inside. And he was there planning on murdering the Supreme Court justice, and he was planning on murdering 3 Supreme Court justices. And that was basically a one-day news story because our filthy, corrupt news media turned it into a one-day news story. You know, Congressman Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed on a baseball field by a Democrat Party activist and a Democrat Party volunteer, a Bernie Sanders volunteer named James Hodgkinson. And this is what the Democrat Party has done by demonizing all of their political enemies, trying to jail like the communists, their communist forebears, try to jail their political enemies and have jailed Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, and they've tried to imprison President Trump for 100 years. These people are not democratic. They're undemocratic. They're anti-democratic. They're un-American. They're anti-American, and they are dangerous. And Joe Biden kept using the words in his little farewell address, dangerous, and the oligarchs, vilifying and demoning. Now, I mean, again, the oligarchs, a CEO was just assassinated in New York a few weeks ago by a left-wing radical who was convinced that CEOs and pharmaceutical companies are evil, and therefore it's legitimate, justified to murder people, keeping in mind that the left has murdered 100 million people, quite literally, and maybe many more than that, since the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. Murdered literally 100 million people in the name of bringing about their twisted, demented form of utopia, and that Adolf Hitler's party was called the Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That means it's a Socialist Workers' Party in Germany, and it's national, you know, in case you're having trouble with the semantics and you voted for Kamala, which could happen. But honestly, the demonization of everyone has led to Steve Scalise being shot, Brett Kavanaugh being targeted, along with 2 other Supreme Court justices, Donald Trump being shot once, winged, but shot with a rifle through the ear from great distance, and it was this close to being the Zapruder film. I'm holding my right index finger an inch and a half over my right thumb. This is the Democrat Party demonizing CEOs, demonizing the Supreme Court, demonizing Donald Trump. And it also poisons relationships in living rooms and kitchens and in bedrooms because they politicize absolutely everything from the weather to a child's gender. And that's all on the left, 100%. James Hodgkinson, a Bernie Sanders volunteer, shot and wounded Congressman Steve Scalise and was there to murder the entire Republican baseball team. And the news media treated it like it was a fender bender on the Beltway, like it was no big deal at all. That is amazing stuff. And, you know, I got to tell you, the Brett Kavanaugh would-be assassin, that story just went away in no time at all. That was nothing. The shooting of Steve Scalise went away in no time at all because it's Democrats. That's a fact, Jack. Nicholas Roski is the name of the psychopath Democrat, the armed would-be assassin that showed up at Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home. You know, honestly, and who do you think's carjacking all these people in Washington, D.C., and on and on and on? The Democrat Party is a danger to democracy, to borrow a phrase from Joe Biden. Honestly. And I'm just mentioning in the last few years. Haven't even gone back. It was a Democrat campaign volunteer that assassinated Martin Luther King, a communist that assassinated John F. Kennedy. Shall I go on? Because I could go on for another hour and a half on the history, the checkered, blood-drenched history of the Party of the Confederate States of America and Jim Crow, the Democrat Party. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. I've got this is a little bit bothersome, I've got to say, in this context of the Trump hatred. And look, the Democrat Party is a hate party. They're a hate cult. They spread hatred and venom and violence, political violence everywhere. Again, you know, look at the history of political violence in the United States, and it's the history of the Democrat Party and, you know, one commie in the case of Lee Harvey Oswald. But, and of course, a Palestinian Christian who shot and killed Bobby Kennedy. But beyond that, Ronald Reagan shot, Gerald Ford shot at twice, Donald Trump shot, a second would-be assassin captured. You've had, 4 presidential assassinations, and 3 of them Republicans, and one of them, John F. Kennedy, killed by a communist. So somebody to the left of the left. Remarkable stuff in this kind of political division that the Democrat Party thrives on. They really do. Now, I'm disappointed to say that there is a story, the inauguration of Donald Trump this weekend. Former presidents, Obama, Clinton, and Bush, will not be attending the Trump inaugural lunch. Why is that? United in snubbing, Obama, Clinton, and Bush refused to attend Donald Trump's inaugural luncheon. Now, I don't know if they refused. I don't know if they heard about it late and the scheduling. You know, these people, they're former presidents. They have a lot on their plate, even as former presidents, to be sure. But I got to say, a little bit of unity, at least from President Bush. I know Obama's an America-hating communist and a bigot and a racist and undoubtedly an anti-Semite like his pastor, the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, who's a devout racist and anti-Semite. Amazing stuff going on here. But I would like to see the former presidents. You know, you got Big Mike, Michelle Obama, who didn't show up at the Jimmy Carter funeral at the National Cathedral, presumably because she would have been seated next to Donald Trump. But these people, so the 3 former presidents, will attend the swearing-in ceremony. Nancy Pelosi will not. Nancy Pelosi. And Jimmy Carter won't either. But he got a note from his mortician, so that makes it okay, I think. But Michelle Obama boycotting the inauguration, and Nancy Pelosi is not coming. Now, she does have a note from a doctor. She fell and broke her hip, and she has a walker. But, you know, I think if it were Kamala Harris, she'd show up for it, wouldn't she? Yes, she would. She'd have people carry her in, like Cleopatra. And I got to tell you, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. I have a brilliant, wonderful, famous woman friend who is texting me saying she wants to introduce John to other women. And we've got other people saying, listen, John, and I've learned a lot about John in the last few minutes from people that know John. And so I'm not going to reveal, but I know a lot about John now. And there are people that are saying, John, we'll find you another woman. They live together. They've been together for 9 years. And, you know, sometimes opposites attract. And it's a mixed marriage, But there is so much of this going on in the United States these days. And John's situation is, I think, perfectly typical because, the intolerant lefties in the name of tolerance, the usual stuff. All right, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Neil, the great Neil, calling from Brooklyn, New York. Neil, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Wow. How am I going to live up to that? Hi, Chris.
Hey, good to hear your voice.
You're a great gentleman, Chris, because you managed to give John a lot of advice without besmirching the woman that he cares about, which I admire. I'm not sure that I would have been quite so diplomatic. But anyway, that thing about the president's not attending the inaugural lunch was the reason I called. But I was thinking that, if his girlfriend sees that as an example of the kind of self-righteousness that drives the ego, then of course she has no incentive to have anything, to live up to. But, when I was growing up, and you might remember this too, even before I had any understanding of what was in front of me, I noticed that the left was always very upset with anyone who took a moral stand, like a Jerry Falwell or Anita Bryant. We're talking about like the 70s, 80s. And they used a cudgel of false piety to make their inroads with their big agenda, which was to usurp patriotism, desecrate patriotism, dissolve law and order, eliminate God in the classroom, introduce pornography in film and print and so forth. But it seems like, looking back, what they always wanted at a deep psychological level, or at least what they understood necessary for their acolytes to come on board, was for them to be the ones who felt the self-righteousness that they accused the right wing of having. But I never recall, in those days at least, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there was some of this, but I never recall that, the moral majority wanted censorship gulags, that they wanted the free press to be controlled by the government. They did have an agenda, but it definitely was way more separate from fascistic integration with government than the left agenda ever had become. So I don't know what you think about that, but I just think that what's driving all this demonization now is what gets you there. I mean, what you get when you get there, which is self-righteousness. And now we have Bush. Even Bush, he can't even bring himself to go to an inaugural lunch. I mean, what's wrong with this guy?
Right. For a Republican president, and I read, Obama got the invitation, but he declined the invitation. Then Bill Clinton got the invitation, and he said, he won't be able to make it. I think Obama just told him to go screw himself, And then Bush, the Bush people apparently said that they're not aware of an invitation. They think that maybe they haven't received an invitation or something like that. But and I don't know how to explain that. But the reality is, of course, these three American presidents, the three living American presidents, should attend the luncheon. It is custom. It's tradition. I understand Trump is not their kind of person. That's fine. And as you suggest, Neil, they should rise above that and do it in the name of unity and bringing the country together in this very fractious time when you might even think that we're on the precipice of some kind of a civil war. And President Trump was shot through the ear in a second sniper, and again I mentioned the Brett Kavanaugh would-be assassinate and Republican members of Congress on a baseball field and all of the violence that the Democrats have perpetrated long before January 6th got them really aroused. But these divisions are being driven by people at the highest levels of our government, and that should stop yesterday.
Yeah. Even when Obama sat next to Trump at the funeral of Jimmy Carter and they kibitzed a little bit, that really rose in the headlines, and I think a lot of people saw that as a real milestone of unity.
You're right. An American moment.
Yeah. And even, I just don't understand why these people hate the country this much that they can't rise above their what they get out of their self-righteousness by saying they're not going to be anywhere near Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right, and I agree with you. As always, Neil, over the years, has called in a number of times, and I recall Neil from previous conversations. A brilliant and very thoughtful and wise man, Neil is, and I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, Chris. Happy New Year. Let's do it.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks. And Neil mentioned Anita Bryant also. Did you know that Anita Bryant died last week? She died last week. Amazing thing. Oh, we've got, this is gigantic. Hang on, breaking news. I'm going to say, John from our newsroom just came in with breaking news. CNN is now reporting that the swearing in of President Trump will be moved indoors. And now, I'll say the inauguration. This happened with Ronald Reagan's second inauguration, because as I think it was 7 degrees outside, Ronald Reagan's second inauguration, and the swearing in was moved indoors because of the weather being dangerously cold. I believe it's supposed to be in the 20s on Monday in Washington, D.C. But CNN, and honestly, I want to thank John Matthews for walking this in. CNN reporting that the swearing in of President Trump on Monday will be moved indoors because of the weather, and now others are beginning to follow in reporting that. Do you see anything there, Michael? And the New York Times saying it's going to be moved in, and they're saying it's because of the cold, right? Not because of security or something like that. But that changes the nature of the inauguration on Monday. Boy, I've got to tell you, my best girl's sister, my sister-in-law, and her best guy are coming in from Georgia for the inauguration. And you come in, what, are you going to go down to the mall and stand on the mall all day long when the swearing in is going to be indoors? That is not an enhancer, I've got to say. I'm disappointed to hear that. You know, everybody was prepared with cold weather gear, and you get those little cracky things you put in your gloves that warm your hands and stuff. Wow, that is big. That is a gigantic development. Nuts. And I got to say, I was just mentioning because Neil mentioned her name, Anita Bryant, and she died last I think it was 6 days ago. She was a conservative advocate and orange juice. She was the orange juice lady, too. But the New York Times headline was Anita Bryant, who's anti-gay politics. That's you got to attack. In the headline, they attack. Whose anti-gay politics undid a singing career, is dead at 84. The editors at the New York Times and this typist, Anita Gates, will be dead one of these days, too. I hope Anita Gates gets a similar headline, if she gets a headline at all. But remarkable stuff. There are just all kinds of wild things going on in the world, aren't they? So the swearing in is now moving indoors because of the cold weather, allegedly because of the cold weather. And that changes everything. And nothing is as usual in the United States of America anymore. Man. Now, yesterday, Newsweek magazine, could Donald Trump's inauguration be forced indoors due to bad weather? And now the New York Times, Trump advisors may move his swearing in indoors because of cold. That's 1 hour ago. And now just 7 minutes ago, the inauguration will take place indoors because of, quote, dangerous cold. Everything's dangerous, isn't it? Joe Biden is telling us about how dangerous. What is oligarchs are dangerous and cold is dangerous. We've become, I think, a spineless culture in so many ways and a corrupt culture in so many ways. ABC fake news with they're a Democrat front group, George Snuffleupagus and all that. Trump's inauguration moving indoors due to weather, according to sources. Their sources are CNN and the New York Times, probably, at ABC. President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration will be moving indoors Monday due to the freezing weather expected in Washington, D.C. Sources with knowledge of the inauguration planning told ABC News Trump is expected to be sworn in inside the Capitol Rotunda. Very small audience in there. I'm surprised that Trump agreed to this. The inauguration is forecast to be the coldest in 40 years. Ronald Reagan's second inauguration. A quick-moving storm. This is out of Canada. You know, these Canadians are something of a problem. They keep sending these Arctic blasts down our way. A quick-moving storm could bring some snow to D.C. on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, some snow. Not a big deal, I got to tell you. When Trump is sworn in at noon on Monday, the temperature will be about 18 or 19 degrees due to the wind. The wind chill will be between 5 degrees and 10 degrees Fahrenheit. President Ronald Reagan's second inauguration in 1985 was also moved inside due to weather. The temperature that morning fell to a low of 4 degrees below zero. The temperature was just 7 degrees at noon, making it the coldest January inauguration day on record. Reagan's parade was also canceled. Wow, this is big. I mean, I know people coming in from all over the country, including family and friends. This is a big deal. Wah, wah, wah. I am telling you. All right, let's go back. A number of things we had on the docket today that we're not going to get to because of, the course of nature. All right, let's go to Michelle calling from Texas. Michelle, my belle, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Every guy in the world thinks they invented that song.
I'm sure that's true.
Well, do I have the Dr. Phil show?
That is hilarious. I've gotten texts about that, calling me and Jane on the phones, accusing me of being Dr. Phil today. That's hilarious.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm late for running my errands because I couldn't leave the radio listening to John's dilemma. But I think you are a wuss if you call a national radio show with your problem. But if he has extra tickets, I don't know how that works. But there's probably plenty of other ladies that would like to go with him. And we have the former First Lady that's not attending, Michelle Obama.
Right.
That's not attending any events. So she sets the precedent for Democrat ladies. There's no decorum or manners or anything involved with that.
That is a great point.
I'm sorry it's going to be too cold. Maybe it'll be too cold for assassins.
Yeah, maybe it'll be too cold for the next Democrat assassin in line. Yeah, that is a fair point. Michelle, I'm tired. I'm sorry that I used the tired and hackneyed phrase. I always have a song in my heart,
Well, I've been a registered nurse a long time, and every time you introduce yourself, every patient always says, "Oh, Michelle, my belle."
They just want to show you that they're feeling lighthearted, in the medical circumstance and all of that. Michelle, my apologies and my thanks as well. Thank you for checking in. And now I tell you what, let's go to where are we now? Let's go to David calling from Des Moines, Iowa. David, my belle, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Hey, Dave.
I called in once upon a time, a long time ago. I was talking to your screener. My one of my sons, 2016, disowned his mother and I because we supported Trump. And one of his friends on his Facebook suggested matricide. So at that point, it upset my wife, and I told her to just, unfriend him if you don't want to see all the vitriol that was coming from his friends and him. And so it carried out to the point that she died in July of this year after seeing Trump get shot, and he refused to go see her on her deathbed.
Oh, my God. Your wife, his mother died this June.
Story.
after Trump was shouting, your son refused to go see her after she died because of politics.
Well, she wasn't dead yet. She had a massive hemorrhagic stroke and survived 7 days. But during the 7 days, he refused to go see her, even at the behest of his uncle, his brother. But he went ahead and took bereavement leave.
Wow. David, I got to tell you again, the Democrat Party, this is what the Democrat Party has done to families. And it is a form of civil war that they have loosed on our country. And the Democrats inflicted the first civil war, as I've come to call it, on the United States of America. And I'm so sorry, David, to hear that tragic story. And this is 100% on the Democratic Party's leadership and and our filthy, corrupt news media, our awful news media. My, what a day this has been. What a show this has been today. David, God bless you. I'm so sorry to hear that tragic story. And we know where the responsibility lies, tragically. Man, I tell you, today has been a day. And I tell you what the Democrat Party has done to our country, to families, to our politics, to public discourse and civil discourse or in civil discourse. I've been calling it the uncivil war, the incivil war for a long time, and the Democrat Party is driving this hostility, this conflict, and there is no leadership in place in American politics to call on our political leaders to dial this down. And, you know, President Trump was shot through the ear by a sniper, and our politicians didn't dial it down. The Democrats overwhelmingly responsible for dialing it up and for creating this incendiary environment. Man, I'm telling you. Now, Mike calling in from Houston. I don't have time to get to more calls. Where are you going to be on Monday, says Mike? That's a good question. I'm not sure I even know at this point. But I'm going to be here doing radio until noon. And then it looks like the inauguration is going to be, according to current reporting, going to be inside at the Capitol. And it'd be hard to get down there in time. Mike, I don't know.